I didn't know I was going to go live, but I decided to do it because this has been on my mind for the past several days, and it is the murder of a 46-year-old black man by the name of George Floyd in Minnesota last week. And of course, we all know that he was killed by a police officer, a certain police officer, Officer Derek Chauvin, who has since been arrested, thank goodness, and it has sparked protest all across America and even in other countries because we're coming to realize that this type of behavior against people of color in America, particularly black people, African Americans, it's old. How you doing today? Appreciate you stopping in. And this is unacceptable. I don't plan to be here long, but I do plan to be here for a moment to make my voice heard again. And I don't know who is going to chime in tonight during this space and time. I don't plan to be here maybe longer than 30 minutes, but I just want to see what everyone's view is of this whole situation. The man being basically brutalized, ignored by a specific police officer whom I already mentioned. And after his cries of help, him lying on the ground, face down, handcuffed behind his back at the foot of a police cruiser with this police officer's knee in his neck, cutting off of his oxygen flow to his brain, him crying out, asking them to let him up. You had a police officer standing by in one particular portion of that video. He didn't do anything to relieve that man of the distress that he was undergoing. He didn't tell Officer Chavez that's enough. You had two other police officers there as well. And one particular camera view showed several police officers along with Chavez all kneeling beside the body of Floyd on the ground. They could have told him that's enough. They could have pulled that police officer off of him because they knew that that was unacceptable. So, in my estimation, all of the police officers should be arrested. Even though Chavez was arrested a day or two later, wonderful. I would imagine that he's awaiting the judicial process, going to court, and so forth. He doesn't have very much to fight against because the camera doesn't lie, and the world has seen it, the video from several angles. The video doesn't lie, and we know what we witnessed. Even though it has been said there's going to be a thorough investigation, how many times have black people heard that statement? When it involves a police officer, especially a white police officer, killing an unarmed black man, a black man who they mistakenly thought had a gun when it was indeed a cell phone, a black man when they say they felt threatened for their life, and it turns out that the black man, or many black men, did not indeed have a weapon at all, but they were killed and the police officers walked away. How long do we have to experience this tyranny by public officials who were sworn an oath to protect and serve the community. Now, we know in actuality that they are sworn to protect the corporations and not the people. There was a Supreme Court decision that substantiates that. Police officers are not supposed to protect the people, only major corporations. They're policy keepers, policy holders, policy. Uh, Hello, how you doing again? I agree with you. They should go to prison, and in my estimation, they should go to prison, and the key thrown away. Should not be any parole. How long has it been since police officers have been killing innocent, unarmed black people, men and even women? And in some instances and or cases, it's been black teenagers. Someone might say black teenagers. What about Laquan McDonald in Chicago a few years back when the one police officer shot him 16 times? He didn't pose a threat to anyone. What about Tamir Rice, 12 years old, in Cleveland, Ohio? He's playing with a toy gun. There have been many situations where police officers have killed black people with no repercussions, and they've walked away. How you doing, Ryan? I agree with you, Ryan. He should be in general population. That's interesting. It's just a sad state of affairs, and I see these people talking nowadays, and they're saying here recently, uh, it's wrong for people to loot, to destroy property. That's true, but honestly, do you blame the people? Now, with that said, I want to inject this: anyone destroying their community and other people's property and harming other people, those are not peaceful protesters. Those are some other individuals. Those are opportunists. Those are people who are taking advantage of a situation and they're doing something that's already in them to do anyway. Their intentions are ill by nature. I'm talking about people who are peacefully protesting and even those who are just simply fed up. Do you really expect them to behave any other way? Why has not the government, why has not any sitting president over the past 2 decades ever addressed the racist issue or the racism issue in America? It's a sensitive subject, but it is one that should have been addressed a long time ago. And it is sad when you sit in office, you're concerned about foreign affairs, you're concerned about the economy, so you say, you're concerned about America's interest in other lands, other countries, you're concerned about building a strong and powerful military, but you seem to negate the issues, disregard the issues at home that really need to be addressed: homelessness, poverty, the veterans, our own general economy in our several states, and racism on top of it. Why? Why has racism in America never been addressed? Can anyone answer that that's watching me right now? As I said, I'm not going to be with you long. I just had to vent. Uh, I vented before this video. I'm venting during this video, and I'm going to continue to vent afterwards. This crap has to stop. And you know what? I'm encouraged. I'm encouraged uh, to the extent that I feel so happy. Yes, yes, Ryan. And you are correct. That we don't have anything to lose. How long do you keep telling someone who's oppressing you to stop oppressing you? How long do you have to picket? How long do you have to protest? How long do you have to march and hold arms and hold vigils for fallen black people? How long must you do this before someone responds to address the issue? How long must this happen? We never know when the tipping point is going to be when you continue to oppress a people. I believe out of all of the situations that have occurred, yes, I agree with you, brother. We are in a situation now that this is indeed the tipping point. Out of all of the situations that have occurred prior and all of the black people who have died at the hands of the police, unwarranted, unjustified, I believe now that this particular death, especially after Aubrey was killed by the two white gentlemen in the pickup truck uh, a few weeks ago, no, actually it was back in February, uh, and then the young lady killed in her home by the police, and now George Floyd killed maliciously in the street in Minnesota. This indeed was the tipping point. And I am encouraged that the violent, not just simply the peaceful protest, but the violent protesting and the violence that has been sparked by this incident of this man being taken away from his family, taken away from the world. This is the tipping point. And I believe George Floyd was the catalyst for what is about to be the change. I'm encouraged and have been encouraged to hear some of the local officials, some of the mayors, and some of the governors of these states speaking out against what the police officers did to Floyd that caused his demise. I'm encouraged to hear even police officers and various people in positions that are white also speaking out against this atrocity. This should have never, ever, ever happened. Now, I've said this in time past, I'm going to say it again. What we have realized and what we are realizing, many people who had blinders on, rose colored glasses, especially our white brothers and sisters, they didn't want to believe that this was true. Always wanting to paint black people with this broad stroke of the paintbrush as being criminals, as being perpetrators of crime in the news media day in and day out, but you never see the white crime contrasted against what they say black people perpetrate. So this is the tipping point. And there are people in other countries that are responding as well. It is a top priority. I agree. I hear you, Ryan. Thank you guys for chiming in. If it's just you two here tonight, that's all that's necessary. Everyone else will see the video after it's done. But I'm so happy that you tuned in to hear my little rant. Uh, what do you think is the answer to police killing people, and more specifically, African Americans, and not going to jail, not being penalized, still working the job the next day or the next week on administrative leave, never ever being held accountable? Now, when you look at the amount of black folks that have been killed at the hand of police officers, I'm talking about the killings that were malicious, unjustified, unwarranted, When you look at the percentage of the killings as it relates to how many times the police were acquitted or found not guilty versus the ones that have gone to jail, specifically in this particular case, Chauvin, Derek Chauvin. Now, it doesn't it doesn't add up. There are too many people who have lost their lives at the hands of the police that you can't say that our system is balanced. It's not. It's crooked. It's unstable. Case in point, Sandra Bland, Texas. I've said this before. This young lady went to Texas pursuing a job career. After a so called traffic stop, she ends up in jail for a night and dead the next morning, allegedly hanging herself with a garbage bag from a garbage can in the cell. For real. Tamir Rice, this young 12-year-old in Cleveland, Ohio, shot to death by a police officer playing in the park with a toy gun. And what about Philando Castile? Told a police officer that he had a concealed carry. And he was allowed to reach and get his ID, and he was shot to death in the car. What about Alton Sterling? Someone called and said that a man had a gun. How did those two police officers that arrived on the scene where this man was known to have been selling his wares outside of a friend's store, how did they just wrestle him to the ground and then say gun and shoot him gang style on the ground, killing him? How did that happen? Laquan McDonald, Chicago, shot 16 times. I mentioned that already. 17-year-old taking his life. Yes, it is unfair. Every last one of them should be held accountable. And you know what? The Almighty Creator God, Yahweh, He's going to mete out justice against the system, against everyone responsible for all of these atrocities against humanity. I believe that firmly. So I stopped at I believe it was Alton Sterling, Laquan McDonald, Tamir Rice, Sandra Bland, and Eric Garner in New York when he was choked to death. Illegal strangulation hold by a police department. It's not even protocol. It's not proper procedure. He loses his life. And I can go on and on. And it's interesting that they always settle 5 point whatever million, $6 million to the family. There's a contingency there. You know, if you don't pursue this again or bring this back up in the public or try to file a suit against the police department or the city or the state, this is hush money, these monetary settlements. So crazy. Isn't that an admission of guilt by the police department in the cities and the states? It is. It is an admission of guilt. Anytime you settle for millions of dollars to the family of someone that you killed, Sam Dubose in Cincinnati, when you settle out of court for millions of dollars, you basically have told the whole public, you've told the whole world that you were wrong, that you wrongfully took someone's life. Can't bring their lives back. Can't bring the men and the women back. They're gone. And shame on the families who accept the money and never speak out again. Shame on you. My prayers go out to the Floyd family. I've said this before and I'm saying it again. May Yahweh bless you continually and keep you in his protection. Hang in there and be strong as much as lie within you. We are on your side, and not just your side, Floyd family. We are on the side of all of those families that have lost their loved ones unjustly at the hand and by the gun of these police officers that are rogue police officers, and many of them are racist police officers. And for all of you fellow police men and women who don't speak out against your brethren, against your partners, you don't need to be a police officer. You really don't. You're a coward. That's what you are. So I'm pleading with every last one of you all that are out there watching this video, that are privy to this particular video. Don't harm anyone. Don't harm one another. Stop destroying your neighborhoods and your local stores and businesses. Is it justified? I can see why you're doing it. And you know what? You have a reason to do it. It seems that the system will never hear a protest that's peaceful. They will never hear with any meaningful conversation you marching, holding hands in unity after one of their members have killed someone from our society, from our community. They don't listen to that. So it's expected to have riots. What do you expect? And if there's any police officer, any lawyer, any person in the legal system that's watching this, what do you expect? When you are allowing people from your corporations, from your cities, that our tax-paying dollars pay for their salaries, when you allow them to arbitrarily gun down, choke, abuse, and beat and oppress a group of people that have done nothing to them, it's time for us to speak out. It's time for us to speak out loud, louder than we ever have before. Our nation and even the world, blacks, whites, Asians, Latinos, uh, Middle Easterners, all ethnic groups need to start speaking out today, because ultimately it's not just affecting the black community or the African American community, it's affecting all of us. You may not see it right now, but it is. That was really all I had to say. I encourage you, you police officers that have watched the video of Derek Chauvin killing a man on video, which cannot be disputed, cannot be refuted, cannot be debated. It is obvious that he did. And many people in position have already jumped on board and have stated the same. He murdered someone on live video and he needs to pay. And also, those other police officers that stood beside him on the scene, they need to pay as well, because they were complicitory. They didn't pull that man off of him. They didn't tell that man to stop. They allowed it to go on at the demise of George Floyd. Let me know what you think about this. Let me know, let us know what you think the punishment of all of those police officers should be. And what happens, God forbid, that any of them walk and be found not guilty. They are all guilty. They're guilty by association. And hopefully, the justice system will prevail and will render the proper judgment, and they will get what they deserve. as a result. But God helped them if they walk. This is Brother Teacher. What say you? I'm out.